Hi everyone, and welcome to a brand new series in my Unreal Engine 4 tutorials. In this series we're going to look at inventory systems. It's quite a long series with lots of little bits and lots of features, so it'll be quite a few parts unfortunately, but it's quite cool once you get it in there. Now, inventory systems come in all different shapes and sizes, so this one took a while for me to plan out and prep, because I mean, I at first I didn't know which inventory system I should try and mimic. Some people wanted to know how to do survival, some people wanted to do like RPG stuff, some people wanted just basic inventory. So I've kind of gone for a sort of hybrid but mostly survival type inventory system. And so what we're going to do is going to show you how to do that, but hopefully if you go through it and I explain it well enough, you should be able to see how you can tweak it to your own particular system and own design. So the very first thing you need to do is actually plan out on paper or in Word or something how your inventory system is actually going to work. You have to think of every conceivable thing. So so for example, what kind of information you need to store, what kind of things can you do with the items, can you do with the inventory, all these sorts of things. You need to make sure you've got it all nailed down, because it's very, very difficult to go back and change things without breaking the whole entire thing. Okay, so make sure you plan it out well in advance of how you do it. So let's show off what we're going to do in this series. So you may have noticed already some interactive elements glowing. Okay, so if I push the tab key, I'll bring up the backpack for the player. You see it's empty. I can close it, and if I interact with the grass, I get an item, and I can walk up to another one. It'll stack, and another one. You see it stacking there. I can also right click on it to use one, and I can actually empty the slot. I can pick up this one here, and here I've got a rock. I can pick up a rock as well, and you can see them storing up there. And I can also go up to chests who have their own inventory system, right click, and that will transfer all of that into my inventory, okay, which I can use to my heart's consent. So it's quite a simple system, it's quite cool, and what's neat about it, like most of my stuff I show you guys, it's expandable, so you can, it should be easy enough for designers once you've set up the system to add lots more items. Okay, so let's get started. So how this works: this is a system which relies on several things. If I go into my inventory system, so you do it through components. Okay, so the component is how it works. So if I go onto my first person character, you can see they've got an inventory component attached to them. Okay, that's because they have an inventory. Likewise, if I go to my chest here and edit treasure chest, you can see it has an inventory component as well, and I can set up there how many slots it has, what it has in its inventory, such as there. I can also set up its window, what it looks like, and its name, so on and so forth, pardon me. So the component kind of runs everything. That's where all the code is for that. So that's how we manage everything. It's all on one thing. So if I wanted to add more stuff that I could interact with, so maybe I've got like a sack that I want to make have an inventory as well, I literally make the sack actor and just drag this component onto it, and it will make it a inventory. So it has slots and all sorts of things. Speaking of items as well, the items follow parent and child sort of system. So there's an item parent, and then you have a herb, and then we have a stone child as well, where we can set up our own details and settings for each item. So to make a new item, all I have to do is make another child of this and fill out the information, which we'll do in good time. So that's the main bits of it. We'll get into it now and start looking at how to set this all up. So go into my blank, nice clean document. Okay, so I'll make a new folder, and I call it my inventory system. Keep it nice and organised. And in here, we need a few things. So as I said, we need a component. That's the main thing that runs this stuff. So we're going to go new blueprint class, and we're going to choose an actor component, and I'm going to name it inventory component. Another thing we're going to need are structures. Okay, so a structure is a collection of data. Okay, so I'm going to go to blueprints here and click on structure, and here I'm going to have an item structure, and if I open it up, oh bear with, annoying problem. Don't worry about this. This is just me, my stupid computer. It's a quick fix. Yep. Okay. There we go. So item structure is going to hold all the details of our item. So if I go back to my previous one here and look at the item structure, you can see here's the list of all the information on the store about each item. So you want to, this is where the planning comes in. You want to make sure that you've covered everything you need to have. Okay, so let's do that over here. So I'm going to go item, well, just call it name, and that's going to be some text, new variable, a boolean called is stackable, another one for thumbnail, which is going to be the texture we want. So texture 2D. We also need a description. And that's going to be some text again. Another variable. We're going to go is consumable. That's a boolean. Another one for max stack size. I'm going to change that to an integer. Another one we're going to have is durability. So maybe you've got some like weapons or something like that you get in like Minecraft, for example. You want to control how durable they are. We're going to make that a float. What else do we need? Let's go back to... You're going to see me, by the way, dancing between these two because it's going to be tough for me to remember everything. Class, that's what we want. And the class of the item. Oh, we can't do that yet. Oh, we have to actually make the item class. Be able to choose it. Apologies. So let's make that now. We're going to go blueprint, new blueprint class, actor. I'm going to call this item. Go back to my structure and class here. We can now type in item, and you'll see it object type. We want to choose not an object reference but a class reference. Okay. We're now going to set some default values down below here. So the name I'm going to put in is none. Is stackable is going to be default on. Description is I'm going to put none again. I'm going to make it consumable. Max stack size I'm going to say 4. Durability I'm going to leave as 0, and the class I'm going to leave as none. Okay, and we'll click save and close that. So let's make some folders up, make it a bit easy for ourselves. Item, move here. So that's the item structure. So each item will have that structure. Okay, so to show you that, we're going to go into our item class and we're going to set a few things here. So we're going to set the variable of item structure, and over here we can choose its variable type to be that structure we just made. So we're going to call it item structure, and there it is. And if I compile it and expand the default values here, you can see I can customize them all for each of the classes. We'll leave that for now. We'll come back to it later. So there's quite a lot of stuff to do. Okay, so inventory component. Let's go into this thing. So the inventory component has some variables itself. So click on plus variable. I'm going to give it an inventory name, and we're going to make that some text. And we're going to give it also number of slots. Make that integer. Because integers are whole numbers, so we want to make sure that's just a whole number. Inventory name, number of slots, the actual inventory itself, so we're going to go inventory, which we have to come back to in a minute and change its type. In fact, we'll do that now. We'll go into the first person example, map content browser, and we're going to make another structure. Okay, so the first one was an item structure, which contains all the details of each item. The next one is a slot structure, which contains all the details about each slot in the inventory. So I'm going to right click, blueprints, structure, slot, structure. And this one only got two variables. The first one is going to be the item structure. We'll just call it structure. And I can type in here, item structure. So that'd be the item we're storing. And the other one would be quantity. So how many of that item are in this slot. Okay. So now we can change this inventory here to that slot structure. And we will make that an array. It's not just one slot, chances are it's going to be multiple. So I'm going to change this to an array. By clicking on this little icon here, you can change it to an array. An array is simply a list. So click on there and click compile. Okay. So what else do we need on this one? Let's go back to my previous model. Anchor, inventory. Okay, that'll do. Yeah, we'll come back to that later. Okie dokie. So that's like a component. So if I go to my player character and the blueprints here, my first person character, I can now add that component here. So if I go add component, inventory, and give it inventory component. So I'm going to give it a name of the backpack, number of slots, we're going to call it, give it 16, and we're not going to have any inventory to start off with. So if you want the player to start off with something in their inventory, you can just click on this plus icon and choose what kind of item you want to have on them. So that'll do there. We'll go back to our content browser. Okay. The next thing we want is an interact interface. Okay, so an interact interface, you can go right click, blueprints, blueprint interface, and I'm going to call it interact underscore interface. So what is an interface? Well, an interface is a collection of read-only functions that are common between all classes that use that interface. So the function we're going to have on here will be interact. Click compile and close. That's all we have to do. So what we can do with this interface now is set up our item class to use it. Now what's good about this is that you can use the interact interface on anything. Okay, so any class can use it. So it's quite handy for when you're playing a game. And imagine if you push the E key. The E key does various different things in the game usually. So it could be talk to an NPC, open a door, pick up an item, whatever. That can be all be handled by an interface. So in our item, click on class settings up the top here. And in the details, you'll see a section called interfaces. It says no interfaces currently implemented. So we can click on add and choose our interact interface that we just made. And if I right click anywhere, you can see interact comes up as an event, and that comes from that interface. So it's very useful. And where it comes in more useful is that we can make a call from the first person character to check for any actor that we've interacted with has this interface and to do stuff. Sounds very complicated. It really isn't. So what we're going to do is set up that functionality today, and then I think we'll end it there. So going to go into our project settings, going by edit, project settings, and you'll scroll down till you can see input. So inputs, you have action mappings and access mappings. Action mappings are going to be 0 or 1, either off or on, you're doing it or you're not doing it, so jump or no jump, fire or fire. Axis mappings move forward will give you a variety of values between 0 and 1. So it's analog. So for example, like a analog stick on a gamepad will work with these ones here. So on action mappings, we're on a new one. So click on the plus symbol, and we're going to call it interact. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it interact. And with interact, I'm going to then change it from none to the E key, like so, and close this now. So now I can go onto my player character, right click anywhere, type in interact, and we'll see an action event called interact, which is the one we just made. This is not the same as the interface one. Okay, so when we push the E key, this will happen. So how do we check what we're overlapping and how that all works? Okay, so what we want to do is get all the overlapping actors. So get overlapping actors, and the class filter, we're going to type in actor to return all the actors that we are currently overlapping. That will return a list or an array, and with that array we're going to go through each one by one to check whether or not it has an interact function, which our item does. So overlap, we're going to go to for each loop with break, depressed, and a for each loop with break is a loop that will go through all of these items in the array one by one, and until it's completed, or until it's broken, until we tell it to break. So if I go to loop body, we're going to check the element, this one, whether or not it has a interface. So I'm going to type in interface, and you'll see one says does implement interface, and you want to choose the interact interface that we made. Type it in, makes it a bit easier. There we go. And we're going to take that to a branch and hook it up to loop body. So if we push the interact key, it's going to check all the overlapping actors, and for each one it's going to go through each one by one and say does it implement the interface of interact. If it does, we're going to break it and tell it to run that interact function, the event rather. So from true, I'm going to go interact, and you'll see interact message. Choose that, and the target will be this element that we just checked. And then we can loop that right back to the break in the for each loop. I usually like to make this look a bit neater, so it's easy to read, like so. So this whole thing here will handle interactions with anything, be it items, doorways, NPCs, whatever. Okay. Click compile, and we go back to our item, and when we interact with it, we're going to simply just destroy it for now, just to see if it's working. Destroy actor, and compile. So the next thing we need to do is set up our item here to have a collision, because it has no collision on it, it's just a default scene route. So we're going to go in here, give it a sphere collision, and we'll scale it up a little bit, like so. And we need to be able to see what we're doing, so we're going to give it a static mesh. And the static mesh, I'm going to make the root, so I'm going to drag this static mesh over here. Actually no, I'm just going to attach it, I'm not going to make it root. And the static mesh, I'm going to give it nothing, because this is the parent class. I'm not going to give it any details apart from what it needs to have. Click compile and close. So with that item, we're now going to make a sub item, a child class. So right click on item, and you'll see create child blueprint class. Click on that, and I'm going to call it item underscore herb. Open it up, and you can see it's inherited all those things we've just done, as well as, if we go to class settings, you'll see it's inherited the interact interface. Okay, so all we have to do is put on here the stuff that's unique to the herb item. So I'm going to go to static mesh, I'm going to give it the bush, static mesh there. So you can see here my sphere is a bit too small. I'm just going to increase that and give it up. Okay, and this is only going to be this way for this item. Okay, so you can customize it for per item. Click compile, and that's it. I don't have to do the interact function on here because it's being handled by its parent, the item class. I can close that and go back to our map, and if I drag the herb out, for example, and click play, hopefully it should disappear when I push the E key. Hey! Okay, so at the moment that's just destroying it. It's not actually adding it to any inventory yet. Okay, we'll get to that, but that's the main thing, getting it to work when we interact with the bush. And if we overlap these, it should only destroy one. If we were to overlap all of them, it should. There you go, one at a time. Because that for loop with break, it's breaking as soon as it reaches 1, it stops it and registers it. Okay. Okie dokie. So that's how the items work, and the components we've made and set up, and the structures we've set up as well. Okay. Next time we're going to start setting up the windows. So if I go back to my previous model, in the next episode we're going to set up this window here, and how to set up the slots and how they work, and the button here to close it and toggle it off and on. Okay, and eventually we'll get to the point of doing what you see here. Okay, thank you for watching. Yeah, hopefully it made sense as you're following along. As I say, it's not much really to go on in this episode, as it's sort of like an introductory episode. Next week we'll get into more of the juicy stuff, and hopefully we'll get to the end in 5 episodes or less. If you've liked this video, give us a like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you next time for more in this inventory system. Thank you and goodbye.